My name is Samantha. I was 27 years old when everything in my life split cleanly down the middle. Back then, I thought I was standing at a crossroads. Looking back, I realized it was more like standing on a fault line, waiting for the ground to decide which side I belonged on. 5 years ago, I was obsessed with an idea. Not in the cute side hustle way people like to brag about on LinkedIn. I mean the kind of obsession that follows you into the shower, keeps you awake at 3 a.m., and makes your chest feel tight with excitement and terror at the same time. I was building an app. It was designed to help independent artists manage inventory, track sales, and stop getting buried under spreadsheets and guesswork. Painters, potters, illustrators, people who created beautiful things but struggled with the boring, brutal business side of surviving. The app was my belief that creativity deserved better tools. I had poured nights, weekends, holidays into it. I wrote specs on napkins. I tested prototypes until my eyes burned. I lived on coffee and stubborn faith. And I truly believed that if I could just give it my full attention, if I could quit my soul-crushing job and put real time into it, it could work. I even had a plan. My grandmother had left me $30,000 when she passed. Not enough to be reckless, but enough to try. What I didn't have was support. My boyfriend at the time, Mark Reynolds, was 28, smart, practical, the kind of man who believed adulthood was a straight line, stable job, mortgage, kids, retirement. He loved me, I think, but he loved predictability more. And then there were my friends. Daniel, 27, Lucas, 28, Hannah, 26. Good people, conventional lives, steady paychecks. They didn't understand startups. They didn't want to. Still, I thought if I explained it properly, if they saw how serious I was, maybe they'd believe in me. So I invited them all to dinner. I remember setting the table like it mattered. Candles, real plates. I wanted the night to feel hopeful. It didn't. Halfway through the meal, I finally said it. I'm thinking of quitting my job, I said carefully. Just for a year, to focus on the app full time. The room went quiet. Mark was the first to speak. Samantha, he said slowly, like he was talking to a child, you're not seriously considering that. I smiled, already feeling defensive. I am. I've thought it through. You have a good job, Daniel added. People would kill for that stability. Lucas nodded. Most apps fail. You know the statistics? Hannah leaned forward, concern etched into her face. We're just worried about you. Mark put his fork down. We have plans, he said. A house doesn't just pay for itself. I tried to explain. The users, the feedback, the potential. None of it mattered. It's a hobby, Daniel said, not a career. A fantasy, Lucas added. And then Mark said the words that changed everything. It's me or the app, Samantha. The air left my lungs. You need to decide what's more important, he continued. Your life with me, with us, or this gamble. Daniel nodded. Hannah didn't argue. Lucas looked away. They were all in agreement. I stared at their faces, serious, concerned, unified, and realized something terrible. They weren't afraid for me. They were afraid of what I'd become if I didn't need them anymore. I didn't say much after that. I went home with my heart pounding so hard it hurt. 2 days later, after barely sleeping, I gave Mark my answer. I have to try, I said. I'll regret it forever if I don't. His face went cold. So you've made your choice. Yes, I whispered. I choose my dream. He moved out within the week. The others disappeared quietly. Messages left unread, calls unanswered. The message was clear. If I chose the app, I was choosing to be alone. So I did. The first morning after Mark moved out, I woke up to silence so complete it felt artificial. No coffee brewing, no keys clinking by the door, no casual "see you later" tossed over a shoulder. Just me and the hum of the refrigerator. I stood in the kitchen holding my phone, staring at it like it might suddenly light up with apologies, explanations, someone saying, "We overreacted. We believe in you." Nothing came. By the end of that week, the reality of my choice settled into my bones. I quit my job on a Friday afternoon. My manager looked at me like I'd just confessed to joining a cult. You're talented, Samantha, he said carefully, but this is risky. I smiled, I know. On Monday, I officially became unemployed, uninsured, and untethered. I transferred the $30,000 inheritance into a new business account. Watching the number move felt ceremonial, like striking a match in the dark. This was it. I registered the company, bought development tools, paid for server space, ran lean marketing experiments. Every dollar spent felt like a tiny betrayal of security. I lived on ramen and optimism. My apartment turned into a cave of glowing screens and half-empty mugs. The walls were bare, the furniture mismatched. I worked in hoodies and socks because it didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the app. I named it Artisan Flow late one night when the word flow refused to leave my head. It felt right. Like motion. Like momentum. But confidence is a fragile thing when you're alone. There were days I couldn't bring myself to leave the apartment. Days when the silence pressed in so hard I felt dizzy. I replayed that dinner over and over in my head. It's a fantasy. Be realistic. You're throwing your life away. Sometimes at 2 a.m. I almost believed them. What saved me were the tiny wins. The first artist who signed up and didn't cancel. The first email that said, "This actually helps." The first payment notification, $7. That felt bigger than any paycheck I'd ever earned. 18 months passed like that. Code, coffee, no sleep. And slowly, quietly, Artisan Flow started to breathe on its own. I wasn't alone anymore, not really. But the people I'd lost never came back. Not until it was safe. Success doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It creeps in quietly, disguised as exhaustion that finally feels justified. By the time 18 months had passed, I didn't even realize how far Artisan Flow had come until I stopped to look. We had hundreds of users, then thousands. Artists from cities I'd never been to were building their livelihoods with something I'd once sketched on a napkin. 6 months earlier, an arts industry blog ran a feature on tools for independent creators. Artisan Flow was listed first. Overnight, my inbox exploded. Sign-ups spiked. Support tickets poured in. My server nearly crashed. I didn't sleep for 2 days straight, but I smiled the entire time. An angel investor reached out. We talked, then talked again. A month later, I signed my first real funding agreement. I hired 2 freelance developers and a part-time marketing coordinator. I paid myself a small, livable salary. My apartment still doubled as headquarters, but it no longer felt lonely. It felt alive. That's when the past found me. The silence that had lasted over a year and a half broke with a single notification. Daniel Reynolds had messaged me on Facebook. "Hey Samantha, saw an article about Artisan Flow. Congrats. Looks like it's really taking off. Who knew?" Who knew? I stared at the screen longer than I should have. I replied politely. "Thanks, Daniel. Yeah, it's been a lot of work, but things are going well." His next message came fast. Cool. Listen, my company's been looking for software solutions lately. Nothing like your app, obviously, but you're in tech now. Got any recommendations? Or hey, maybe Artisan Flow could even be adapted, LOL. JK, unless? There it was. Not an apology, not acknowledgement, just a hand sliding casually into my pocket. I pointed him toward generic project management tools and told him our focus was strictly on artists. He never replied. A month later, Hannah reached out through Instagram. "Samantha, OMG, Artisan Flow is amazing. My cousin is a potter and she swears it changed her life. I'm so proud of you. We should totally catch up." So proud of you. The words twisted something sharp in my chest. I typed carefully. "Thanks, Hannah. Glad your cousin likes it. Things are pretty hectic right now, but I appreciate you reaching out." No plans, no coffee, no reopening doors that had been slammed shut. Then came the email that surprised me most. It was from Linda Carter, Mark's mother. "Samantha, dear, I hope you're doing wonderfully. I read about your app in the local business journal. Mark always said you were so clever with computers. My charity is looking to build a small donor database. Nothing complicated. Perhaps you could offer some advice? Pro bono, of course, for a good cause." It didn't feel like charity. It felt like a test, a feeler, a soft knock now that I was useful. I declined gently and sent her links to free tools. I didn't hear back. Lucas never contacted me directly, but a mutual acquaintance mentioned he'd been laid off from his safe job 3 months earlier and was struggling to find work. The irony didn't make me happy. It just made me tired. They all assumed time erased the ultimatum. That success rewrote history. It didn't. They hadn't just doubted me. They had walked away when belief required risk. And now that the risk had paid off, they wanted a seat at the table. I didn't owe them one. 3 years after that dinner, Artisan Flow wasn't surviving anymore. It was flying. We closed a serious funding round. Not friends and family money, not favors, but real investors with lawyers and expectations. I signed the documents with hands that trembled just a little, aware that the girl eating ramen in a dim apartment hadn't been a delusion after all. We moved into an actual office. Nothing flashy, exposed brick, secondhand desks, a cracked whiteboard that never erased cleanly. But it was ours. 15 employees, designers, developers, support staff. People who believed in the product, in the mission, in me. We won an industry award, then another. I started getting invited to speak on panels, to talk about resilience, about betting on yourself. Every time someone introduced me as a visionary founder, I felt a flicker of disbelief, followed by something steadier, pride. That was when the request stopped pretending to be friendly. Daniel called me one afternoon. No text, no warm-up. "Samantha," he said, forcing cheer into his voice. "Long time." I already knew where this was going. "Things have been rough," he continued. "Layoffs. You know how it is. Tech is brutal if you're not at the top." He laughed nervously. "Listen, Artisan Flow is huge now. You must be hiring, right?" "We have open positions listed on our website," I said evenly. Right, he rushed on. "But we go way back. Could you fast-track me? Put in a word?" "For old time's sake." The old times when he told me my dream was a fantasy. "Our process is fair for everyone," I replied. "Skills and fit matter." He went quiet, then muttered something about loyalty before hanging up. He applied anyway. His resume landed in our system like any other. Thin experience. No relevant growth. He didn't make it past screening. The texts that followed were not subtle. "You forgot where you came from. Success really changed you. Guess money matters more than people now." I blocked him. Then came Hannah. She tried a different angle. Her cousin, the potter, emailed our support team proposing a partnership. Hannah would promote Artisan Flow on her small lifestyle blog in exchange for a finder's fee. Our marketing lead declined politely, explaining we already had structured affiliate programs. Hannah showed up at the office unannounced 2 days later. "I've been your biggest cheerleader," she said, eyes blazing. "This is how you treat friends?" I looked at her calmly. A cheerleader doesn't vanish for 3 years and reappear with an invoice. She left furious. Her mother sent me a long email that night about sensitivity and missed opportunities. I blocked both addresses. Then the rumors started. Whispers through mutual acquaintances. "Heard she's impossible to work with." Someone said she stole the idea. Must have just gotten lucky with one investor. It was familiar, predictable. When one post crossed into outright defamation on a local tech forum, my legal counsel sent a polite but firm cease and desist. The post disappeared within hours. I felt no satisfaction, just clarity. They weren't reaching out because they believed in me now. They were reaching out because they needed something. 5 years after that dinner, Artisan Flow was acquired. 6 months earlier, to be exact. The email had arrived on a Tuesday morning, disguised as just another calendar invite. By Friday, my entire life had shifted. The numbers were real, the lawyers were thorough, the deal was done. Life-changing doesn't even begin to describe it. I stayed on with the parent company, leading the Artisan Flow division, protecting the product, protecting the people, protecting the vision that started in a silent apartment with nothing but fear and stubborn faith. The fantasy had paid off. That was when the final messages started coming in. Daniel emailed first. Subject: a humble request. He apologized. Sort of. The kind of apology that says, "Sorry you felt that way," instead of "I was wrong." Then he explained his situation. Debt. Bad luck. Tough economy. He asked if I could loan him $50,000. "I'll pay it back once I'm on my feet," he wrote. I didn't reply. 2 weeks later, his mother emailed me, pleading on his behalf. She reminded me how close we'd all been in the beginning, how success should be shared. I ignored that too. Hannah and her mother showed up at the office building, unannounced. Security didn't let them past the lobby. Hannah cried loudly, claimed we were family, said she just wanted to congratulate me and discuss opportunities. They left behind a congratulatory card with her phone number and a note scribbled inside. "Let's talk influencer strategy. I can really help now." It went straight into the trash. Lucas was the quietest and somehow the most exhausting. He sent a handwritten letter, pages long, thoughtful tone, regret woven carefully into every sentence. He talked about his job loss, the online courses he'd been taking, how he admired what I'd built. He attached his resume. For a moment, just a moment, I almost believed him. Then I remembered his voice at that dinner. "They're just being practical, Samantha." The quiet agreement, the subtle betrayal. I had HR send him a standard response. No favors, no shortcuts. Then came Mark. Or rather, his ex-girlfriend Sophie, who had become his fiancée. I received a wedding invitation with a handwritten note. "Samantha, I know things ended abruptly. Seeing your success has been inspiring. I'm proud of the woman you've become. Maybe we could get coffee before the wedding. For closure. Closure. I RSVP'd, declined. No note. A week later, Mark's fiance's fiance, a finance consultant named Ethan, sent me a LinkedIn request. He pitched synergy. I declined. The last message came from Mark's mother, a voicemail this time, tearful, desperate. Mark and Sophie were separating. Financial issues, bad decisions. She asked if I could talk to Mark. He always valued my opinion. I didn't call back. That chapter wasn't unfinished. It was over. Peace didn't arrive all at once. It settled in quietly, like dust after a storm. After the acquisition, after the final unanswered emails and blocked numbers, my life became calm. Not empty, not lonely. Calm in a way I'd never known before. Artisan Flow lived on, bigger than I ever imagined, but still true to its purpose. I led my team with clarity instead of desperation. I mentored young founders who reminded me painfully of my younger self, hopeful, terrified, hungry for belief. And for the first time, I wasn't building my life around proving anyone wrong. I was just living it. My days were full, meaningfully full. Not frantic, not defensive. I traveled, I spoke at conferences, I reconnected with people who had supported me quietly from the beginning, without ultimatums or conditions. And then there was Alex. He wasn't impressed by my resume, didn't flinch at my ambition, didn't ask me to slow down or shrink myself into something easier to digest. He was an artist, successful in his own right, and he used Artisan Flow daily. Not because of me, but because it worked. When I told him my story, he laughed softly and said, "That's kind of badass." No jealousy, no fear, no pressure. Just respect. The old wounds faded into something distant. Not forgiven, just no longer bleeding. I didn't wish my past any harm. I simply stopped carrying it. They had asked me to choose, and I had. I chose belief over comfort, growth over approval, integrity over fear, and I would choose it again, every single time.